What's up, everybody? Russell Clay here, ready to talk to you about Clay's Corner for this week. I was doing the tutorial for the Discord last week over at fantasyguru.com, and it kind of reminded me that I like video content. I like doing screen sharing, talking about sort of concepts and ideas with that sort of video platform. And I said, hey, why not? Let's try Clay's Corner this week with that video element. So below, I'm still going to post 2022 rankings. I'm still going to post that 2022 rookie mock draft that I had last week, both one quarterback and super flex. But today, instead of the written stuff, I'm going to talk about three players and situations that I'm looking at right now from a football perspective. And I'm going to break that down through the video, through sharing my screen, through looking up some stats. And instead of just giving you guys the results of my process, I'm going to show you how I actually go through it. So you're going to see Pro Football Reference. You're going to see all that good stuff. So definitely excited about this. Hey, let's get into it. So I'm going to share my screen. I got some tabs open for you guys. So spoiler alert, you can probably see the tabs already, but number one, I have Dynasty Watch open for this week, which I just did a huge dynasty rating update. Joe Colonna actually came into the chat and suggested I put Dalton Schultz into the rankings, which I don't have him in my tight end rankings. After last year, I wasn't sure he was going to sustain himself. He kind of bumped in there because of an injury, but obviously, you know, he's surpassed Blake Jarwin on the tight end depth chart for the Cowboys there. So, but as I said, if you like Dynasty or you like looking at the long-term outlook of NFL and skill position players, I highly suggest checking out this article. As you can see, I updated a ton of guys, the Russell Wilson injury. We bumped down Jalen Hurts a little bit. Saquon Barkley got a bump down, and we go all through, you know, the Juju Smith-Schuster injury. We'll get into that in a little bit, but, you know, there's tons of player movement right now in the NFL. And I think this is a great hub to get your updates every week on not only the dynasty landscape, but, you know, Khalil Herbert, a guy we've been talking about a little bit here. So, you know, check out the dynasty article. You never know what might help you from a season-long standpoint as well. Anyway, all right. Let's get into the three topics today that I'm going to be talking about. Number one is Jamar Chase. Number two is Juju Smith-Schuster. And number three is the Florida Gators from 2019. So Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously season-ending surgery today or the last couple of days. So we're going to talk about that. Jamar Chase and his absolutely incredible start to his career. And we're going to look at all this. So let's just get into it. Let's start where it started for Jamar Chase. LSU, obviously 5th pick in the draft in the 2021 NFL draft. But I mean, this guy's college career was crazy. After sort of not doing much in his freshman season, Joe Burrow was kind of getting his bearings straight in that 2018 season. Actually, let's check that out. Hey, I said we're doing the research together. So 2018 LSU, if you guys aren't familiar with College Football Reference, this is my home. This is my natural habitat. So we're going to take a look at 2018 LSU. The year before, everyone was great. We got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We got Leonard Fournette's brother hanging out there. Justin Jefferson. So, you know, his true freshman season, he did finish 3rd on the team in receiving yards. Joe Burrow wasn't quite ready to produce yet on an elite level, but as you can see, he kind of was emerging as a true freshman, but it wasn't the impact that we got in 2019. But what I'm going to show you guys today is what an elite wide receiver prospect looks like and why after a certain point, we don't need to see anymore. I know everyone likes to see, 3 years of Studley production with a great final season, but so we have the 2018 season, right? He kind of broke out. He was playing starter snaps. He didn't quite, do the CeeDee Lamb, but he had a good freshman season. Then we get into 2019 and he was incredibly prolific. And obviously after 2019, he sat out last year and just went straight into the 2021 draft. 2020, obviously marred by the COVID situation. But the point is, we didn't need to see any more after this. We saw Jamar Chase play every position, haul in deep targets, the ones that we're seeing in the NFL. He was doing the same thing in 2019 at LSU. So the point is, there's been a long line of sort of clarity. We knew in 2020 he was going to be a top 5 pick. It was stupid he wasn't able to come out for the 2021 class or the 2020 class, but that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, so he comes to the NFL. He's a 5th overall pick, right? Which is important. We know players drafted in the first round of the NFL draft have much higher odds of future success compared to players drafted later or undrafted free agents. So he has a super prolific year in 2019, gets picked 5th overall in the NFL draft. And now he's a featured wide receiver from day one of his NFL career. So if you checked out the Dynasty Rankings update, you'll know I bumped Jamar Chase up to a 95 overall in the Dynasty ratings. I was probably pretty bullish on him before the season, having him in the mid to high 80s. That's really high with how high variance rookie wide receivers tend to be. But, when you looked at his body of work, along with the athleticism, along with the solid frame, 6'1", 200, this is what he profiled like. Now, do I think he's going to score a touchdown every game for the rest of the season? No. But the point is, again, just like we saw in college through this 5-game sample size, we've already seen enough. We've already seen enough to lock in Chase as, if not the number 1 wide receiver in dynasty leagues, right in contention. And now if you like Justin Jefferson, you like CeeDee Lamb, you like DK Metcalf, some people prefer AJ Brown. If you like any of those guys, I'm fine. I have a 3-way tie right now or 4-way tie, I guess you could say, Metcalf, Lamb, Jefferson, and Chase. But if someone's going to have Chase as their number 1 dynasty wide receiver, I not only don't think that's crazy, I think that is the optimal way to look at it. 21 years old, already producing wide receiver 1 numbers. Why wait? Why are we waiting to put him up there? Great young quarterback to be paired with. We just lock this in and move on. That's the point with Jamar Chase. Some guys are undeniable. He was an undeniable prospect, undeniable through 5 games. And we just lock him in. So there you go. Jamar Chase. We don't need to think about him anymore. There is no more conversation for me. I am locking him in, and we're moving on. So we're moving on to a much more difficult case. Juju SmithSchuster, another player who was very, very prolific in college from an early age. But obviously the most recent news is he went on injured reserve. Out for the season. We're not going to be seeing any more of Juju SmithSchuster this year. He will not be accumulating any more fantasy points. And as you can see here, he wasn't really producing much even when he was playing. So he took that 1-year deal to go back to Pittsburgh, and obviously that didn't pay off. But so why is he a topic of conversation today? I did move him down in the dynasty rankings, mainly due to not scoring any more points this year. But I actually think we are in a buy low window for Juju SmithSchuster. And, I think the term buy low for fantasy football has gotten very overused. A lot of players are themed as buy low players when they aren't actually. Say a player loses their quarterback or something happens. Dynasty leagues are pretty sharp at this point. The average fantasy player is pretty sharp at this point. Let's talk about DK Metcalf. Is DK Metcalf a sell high right now? Or is DK Metcalf just a hold? Because if you could get DK Metcalf at the full price, right, where Russell Wilson is healthy, that's much different than Russell Wilson with Geno Smith as his quarterback. And unless you're in a league where, the owners aren't very sharp, that Geno Smith starting for the rest of the year is going to be priced into his price. So that happens a lot where there's, I look at Derrick Henry coming into this year was on a lot of sell high lists, right? But the problem is Derrick Henry, you're never getting the full price of what he's worth on your roster because he's older, right? He doesn't catch the ball. So he already has two things working against him from a perception standpoint. He has all those high touch seasons behind him. And, these are all things nobody likes. So whenever you go into a trade negotiation, that's going to be the first thing that gets brought up when you're trying to trade away Derrick Henry. So what is a buy low or what is a sell high? I would argue Juju SmithSchuster is a good definition of an actual buy low because everyone is out on him at this point. Juju SmithSchuster really 97 catches last year, but only 831 yards. It was a strange year. Obviously, Big Ben is in a weird place in his career where it's almost done. But look at this 3-year stretch. And it sort of reminds me of Allen Robinson. And I guess we can go to Allen Robinson. Let's look at him. Let's look at his career and what the middle of his career looked like. So Allen Robinson sort of had this 3-year stretch where he went from 1,414 to kind of a dud 2016 as a number one target and a high round fantasy pick, gets injured in 2017, 2018, first year in Chicago, really struggles with injuries and also a not so great situation. So 25-year-old Allen Robinson dropping in startups, dropping because it seems like his career, if we take these 3 years out, we see 548, 1,400, and then we see this 3-year stretch. Is his career over? That's kind of what it looked like. So going back to Juju, we don't know what his age 26 to 30 is going to look like. We don't know what team he's going to be on next year. We don't know what quarterback is going to be his quarterback. All we know right now is that he's had 3 straight years either filled with injuries or a bad quarterback. And we do know early in his career, we know he's put up 100 catch season. We know he's proven to have 1,400 yard potential. Maybe we can't expect these type of numbers ever again, but in a new situation in his age 26 season, again, he came into the NFL at 20 years old, played half of his rookie year at 20 years old. Now we're looking at 2021 being done. I think this trade deadline, this next 4 weeks, you're going to see Juju SmithSchuster be really, really cheap. And this is a guy who was a borderline first round pick in startups just a few years ago. We're going to see him go for really cheap, especially on teams that were contenders and are looking to trade him to get win now pieces. I am looking to heavily buy Juju SmithSchuster right now. Who knows what you can get him for? A 2nd round rookie pick? Give it a shot. who knows what these people are going to give him up for. So, this is a real buy low because this is a sunk asset. People have spent high rookie draft picks, high dynasty startup picks on him, and he has severely disappointed. So I'm still optimistic that he can be a number 2 wide receiver in a good offense. So 26-year-old Juju Smith-Schuster in, say, maybe he goes to Jacksonville next year. Maybe he goes to, I don't know. Maybe he goes to Buffalo. Hell, he's not going to be expensive for any other NFL teams next year. He could go anywhere. He could go on a min deal he could go to the Chiefs. Chiefs need a second wide receiver. So what happens to Juju Smith-Schuster's value if he goes to the Kansas City Chiefs next offseason? He's instantly going to see a 3, 4, 5 round jump in startup ADP. And the thing is, once we get to the offseason, people are going to start thinking about, okay, where's his next spot? Actually, it's only a shoulder. It's not a lower body. What if he comes back? So this is the time to strike. They just lost him for the year. He's not going to be providing any more value this year. He's on a team with a negative perception right now. He's coming off, 15 catches in 5 games with no fantasy relevant results. This is a true buy low. And, maybe he continues to get injured for the rest of his career, but I like betting on a guy with this type of early career production to turn it around, and also a 97 catch season just 1 year ago. So I think he's a great buy low right now, if I haven't said that already. All right. Lastly, in honor of Kadarius Toney, I figure we can kind of look at 2019 Florida and what happened here, and give you a little peek behind the curtain of my process, with prospects. So Kadarius Toney, he was a first round pick, played really well in his final season at Florida, 1,145 scrimmage yards and 11 touchdowns on 89 touches. Really special after the catch, but because he was, not the prototypical, because he was not Jerry Jeudy, he was not CeeDee Lamb, he was kind of a unique player. He kind of gets that Tavon Austin type, people look at him like a gadget guy, Cordero Patterson until this year, those types of guys. So what is Kadarius Toney? What happened in his college career? Now, when you look at his first 3 years, you'd say, all right, why are the Giants picking this guy in the first round of the NFL draft? He couldn't even become a real starter until his final season. And that's where the context comes in, right? Like 253 receiving yards in his junior season, as compared to a guy like Jamar Chase, 1,900 receiving yards and 20 touchdowns in his sophomore season. So we're looking at very different career trajectories here, but obviously we've seen from the first couple weeks of Toney being in a big role, there's something that was missed in his college profile, right? Like there's something that doesn't add up here. Why was he not producing more? Why was this guy dominating the NFL over the last 2 weeks? Not a guy who broke out earlier in college. So I point back to this 2019 Florida team where you had a lot of NFL talent on this team. So look at the top 3 of the top 4 yards from scrimmage leaders, and all 3 of the top receivers are NFL players. One of them being Kyle Pitts, the other being second round pick Van Jefferson, who is, a starter playing 80% of the snaps for the Los Angeles Rams right now. The other one is Freddie Swain, who is starting for the Seattle Seahawks right now. So what we had is a big old log jam, right, of NFL talented players, NFL caliber players that were keeping Toney from being his optimized gadget self. So because of that, because Van Jefferson isn't as unique as Toney from a usage and chess piece standpoint, they just plugged him into a wide receiver spot. Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver. He took all the intermediate targets, right? And of course he did. He's the best tight end prospect of the last 2 decades. Why wouldn't he? So Kyle Pitts being there is going to take a ton of Kadarius Toney's usage. And obviously once Jefferson and Swain left in 2020, things changed and they got Toney on the field. But when you look at sort of this landscape, it makes more sense and it puts into color why Toney was sort of used as an all-purpose weapon. I believe, they used him on, kick and punt returns. He was just sort of the gadget guy, but then they found out he could be more. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is he always was more. He always did have talent. He was at Florida playing as a true freshman. But he just, he had a bunch of other NFL players on his team. So this is the context we kind of look for with prospect evaluation. And we saw a lot this offseason, people sort of dinging Toney due to his lacking production. But what I would say is you don't have to look too deep into it to say, oh, I see why he didn't instantly produce. He was a more difficult player to optimize in a college system compared to Van Jefferson, who's a sort of one-trick pony. So there's a bit of context for you guys. Obviously, we have a ton of time this summer to go over prospect evaluation, but I was looking at that this week, obviously with Van Jefferson emerging, with Freddie Swain also emerging, and with Kyle Pitts having a huge game this weekend. I did think it was worthy of our attention to go back and look at that Florida team and say, hey, what actually was going on here? Because it was very confusing at the time, but now we know. So that is, Clay's Corner for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for checking out the article, and I will see you guys next week.